So this is the first edition, the first week of our weekly seminar. So thank you for coming. Like seriously, it's awesome to see you guys and knowing all you guys personally too. It's really really great. Really appreciate it. But we are going to start off this whole thing with a quiz, which is kind of lame. I think you'll know what I'm driving at as far as why we're starting out with a quiz. The title of this, the first lesson, is our current nutrition predicament. How bad is it? So as I was trying to conjure up how I could like kind of drive home this point, I came up with a quiz. I immediately came up with like 20 questions I could ask and ultimately landed on cutting it down to these 10. So again, feel free to use your phone. I've got a paper copy. If you're following along, all you need to do is go to www.myboundlessbody.com/seminar and everything is there. It's all free, not selling anything. Everything is free that we will do. So the quiz is there, the lesson plan, kind of outline. What's that?
Who wrote the link there?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Yep, that'll be on each one. So yeah, you can find and access all of that. You can share it with anybody. But I'm going to read through some of these quiz questions and give you options. Again, if you're just watching this on YouTube, just go to the website www.myboundlessbody.com/seminar. Download the quiz. You can do it online or print it out. Question number 1, according to a 2022 study, what percentage of Americans are considered metabolically healthy? So,
Healthy?
considered metabolically healthy according to a 2022, most recent.
I haven't heard that one.
That I had not heard it until very recently either. It was published in a cardiology publication. It was based on several factors, which I should know, which I don't. That reminds me, anything I cite, I have not gone through and had all the exact citations. If you have a question about something, note it, and I'll like ask it later, and I will give you the citation. I didn't take the time to go through everything and cite everything, but if you want those, if I say something that sounds really bogus and you question it, just let me know and I'll write a citation. So options there. What's that? According to a 2022 study, what percentage of Americans consider metabolically healthy? First option, more than 48%, 43%, 17%, 12%, ouch, less than 7%. Number 2, starting in the 1950s, an aggressive campaign began to address the rise of heart disease in the United States. So currently, what is the leading killer of Americans? Options there are cancer, COVID-19, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, obesity, diabetes. Second answer that. Question number 3, one large egg contains 187 milligrams of cholesterol. The current USDA standards, nutritional guidelines recommend which limit on dietary cholesterol? Greater than 187 milligrams, so more than one large egg. Exactly one large egg, 187 milligrams. Less than 170 grams, so less than one large egg. And there are no current recommendations on the cholesterol intake. Number 4, according to industry experts, how old is an apple that you buy at the grocery store? Less than a week, a month old, 3 months old, 6 months old, or more than 12 months old. Number 5, according to recent studies, does red meat cause cancer? Number 1, definitely it's statistically significant. Probably yes, maybe no, and then no, it's statistically insignificant. Number 6, in 1977, the United States government set out our original nutritional guidelines that were determined largely by, and you can choose all of these that apply. First is a 2-day review. Second is a committee led by a senator with no formal nutrition education. Third is a review done mostly by lawyers and journalists without formal nutrition education as well. The opinions of an ideological-based secretary to a senator. Data that was not peer-reviewed or validated. Data that could not prove any clear evidence for the guidelines. This is the very first time the government got involved with giving us our nutritional guidelines, 1977. Number 7, the cereal industry was started in the 1870s, largely because, and this is just choose one, food fortifications would provide an increase of vitamins and minerals, whole grains were needed to increase fiber intake, convenient breakfast foods were needed to help industrial workers, or the last one, sexual desires needed to be quelled according to a religion. Weird. Last one. I'm sorry. Last option on number 7 is a serendipitous accident occurred and Frosted Flakes were born from an accident. Number 8, the current nutrition guidelines on cattle's contributions to greenhouse gases are estimated to be around what percentage in the United States? More than 51% of our greenhouse gases, 51%, which is reported by the documentary called Cowspiracy, 32%, 17%, 9%, or less than 3%. Question number 9, what percentage of vegetables need to be included in an oil for it to be called vegetable oil? 100%, simple majority 51%, a quarter 35.5%, 20%, or 0%. Finally, in 2022, Tufts University and their very highly respected nutrition school came out with what they called their food compass, which is a ranking of many, many foods by their healthfulness. 3 of the following foods appear in the green category. Identify the 3 that you would choose. So they are a few branded cereals. So Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats is one. Kellogg's Raisin Bran is one. Post Honey Nut Bunches of Oat with Vanilla Bunches, delicious. Chicken Filet Grilled. Kellogg's Honey Smacks. And Ground Beef Cooked. Here's your quiz. Yeah, no worries. That's really good. 70%. That's really good.
What does green actually mean?
And these are the green category means these are the healthiest.
I figured that.
Recommended to be eaten the most. Yellow is you should moderate them, and red is foods to be avoided. One person already got 70%. That's quite impressive. Quite impressive. Maybe just another minute and we'll go through the answers. Actually, do you want to go through the answers now, or do you want me to leave you on a cliffhanger and we'll go through them in a little bit? Okay. Go through them now. Question number 1. Here are your answers. See how you did. According to a 2022 study, what percentage of Americans are considered metabolically healthy? Takers?
7.
Less than 7.
Because 12 was the previous study. And
yep. There was a study that came out in 2016 that identified that 12 people, based on different blood markers and blood pressure, waist circumference, that kind of thing, that dropped in 2018 to 7%. It seems like it's about the same according to this 2022 study, less than 7%. Starting in the 1950s, an aggressive campaign began to address the rates of heart disease in the United States. Currently, what is the leading killer of Americans?
Heart disease.
It's heart disease. Think about that. That's crazy. Like, we changed all of our guidelines for one thing, and that was to combat heart disease. And here we are 6 years later. We're worse. It hasn't gone in any kind of direction. We didn't consider whether the diet would be better for obesity. We didn't study it in women or children. We didn't do anything besides middle-aged men dying of heart disease. And it is the same. Question number 3. One large egg contains 187 milligrams of cholesterol. The current USDA nutritional guidelines recommend which limit on dietary cholesterol? More than 187, exactly 187, less than 187, and or there is no current recommendation on cholesterol intake.
More than 187?
More?
No current.
Well, the answer is the gray on our quiz. So
there is no current limitations from our nutritional guidelines starting in 2015.
Oh, okay.
On page 36 of the thing,
So
it says cholesterol.
Limiting to now saying, well,
it doesn't matter. But the point, like the reason why I put that question in there is, like, after all that attention on cholesterol in the guidelines, where was that press release? Why didn't anybody tell anybody about that? That would have been nice. According to industry experts, question number 4, how old is an apple that you buy at the store? Less than a week old, month old, 3 months old, 6 months old. The answer is more than 12 months old. They call them in the industry birthday apples because they're typically about 12 to 14 months by the time they get from the tree to a grocery store. Is there anything you can confirm on that, Nathan? Having the back end of
may
food?
have seen like us get a shipment of apples in, and then like it was still there like at least 2 months later. So like that's surprising though. It's a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they're refrigerated, right?
Some stores refrigerate them, some don't.
Because I saved mine from the winter
Yeah.
and they forget to even go get them.
Yeah, I remember getting apples by the case from Santa Quinn, and they would stay good for a while if you refrigerated them. Interesting. Number 5, according to recent studies, does red meat cause cancer? Definitely, probably yes, probably no, probably yes, maybe no. No, it's not statistically significant is the correct answer on that one. This was a very frequently cited report by the World Health Organization that said that meat is probably carcinogenic and processed meat is definitely carcinogenic. In statistics, there's a rule that if you're just looking at a population, this is called epidemiology. If you're just looking at a population, you can't, it's not statistically significant if the difference in what you're looking at is not more than double. Like it has to be double. The biggest win as far as this went was smoking, when we found that you had a 20-fold increase of lung cancer if you smoked. The data that they got based on questionnaires was a 1.5 and a 1.15 and a 1.18, minuscule difference in cancer that is not statistically significant and based on terrible data collection.
Yeah, the original study, or one of the original studies, weren't a lot of the smokers, but smoking was a lot more prevalent.
Exactly. Yep.
So,
yep. Exactly.
yeah.
Yep. That was a big win, but yeah, we'll talk a lot about that. In 1977, U.S. guidelines set out our original national nutrition guidelines are based on largely on choose all that apply. Every single one of those is true. They took 2 days. The committee was led by Senator McGovern. It was attended by lawyers and journalists that had just interest in how the commission was going. The opinions of the secretary of Mr. McGovern were very much religiously driven towards plant-based. I'm not sure if he was Seventh-day Adventist or not, but all of that is true. The data was not peer-reviewed or validated. In 2 days, they released the information, and that is how we have our guidelines. Cereal industry started largely in 1870s, largely because food fortifications, whole grains were needed for fiber, convenient breakfast foods were needed, sexual desires needed to be quelled according to a religion, and a serendipitous accident occurred and Frosted Flakes were born. John Harvey Kellogg invented cereal as an Adventist to deter especially adolescents from sexual desires and things like that. They found that if you fed kids grains in the morning, they would have less of their sex hormones and testosterone, and that's how the cereal industry was born. Graham crackers.
I tell you, I knew about Graham.
Ah, nice. Graham, Post cereal, Kellogg's, all of that stuff all came from the Battle Creek, Michigan kind of area. The movements that evolved out of the Millerite movement.
Because it was about a giant religious group, and it was just really weird.
Yeah.
But
The Adventists did not. Yeah, right. And they were very different. Like they weren't like sugary like they are today, but yeah. Number 8, current numbers on cattle's contribution to greenhouse gases are estimated to be what percentage here in the United States? The correct answer is less than 3%. This is a number that gets cited all the time. In the United States, our cow production is very, very efficient, and they can keep those numbers down very, very low. Muchly incorrectly cited. Number 9, what percentage of vegetables need to be included for oil to be called vegetable oil? 100%, 51%, 35%, 20%, 0%. There is not one single drop of a vegetable in vegetable oil. Next time you go to the store, scan that aisle and just think what a wonder it is that we call all of these things vegetable oils that have 0 vegetables in them. Number 10, 2022, Tufts University introduced their food compass ranking foods in order of healthfulness. These are in order. The top 3 are the green ones. Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats, Kellogg's Raisin Bran, and Post Honey Bunches of Oats with vanilla bunches are all considered healthier than chicken fillet grilled, a grilled chicken breast, which is yellow, Kellogg's Honey Smacks, which is also yellow, and below that in red is ground beef cooked. That's pretty cool. So obviously the goal of that, the intention of that was not to trick you or make you feel bad, but just to show like how bad our guidelines and our goals are in this day and age. Kind of want to go back and just introduce myself. Obviously, you guys all know me. My name is Casey. I've been a personal trainer since 2007. I worked for most of my career on metabolic carts, measuring people's metabolisms and metabolic rates, and over time found that if people went on diets and really restricted their calories they would intake, that their metabolic rates would go down. I tested a person who did the Biggest Loser contest after getting kicked off the show, and her metabolic rate was like 1,000 calories less than what it should have been after doing 6 hours of workouts a day, and they were eating 1,200 calorie diets. She had some good stories. But yeah, and eventually I just kind of found that the more I was giving people the standard advice, the less it was really working for people. Conflicts of interest, I don't really have any associations to any companies. My wife and I own Boundless Body, so people can sign up for training or nutrition coaching with us. Other than that, we don't have any conflicts. Okay, so as we go through some of these, I do want to mention also we host the podcast called Boundless Body Radio. We have over 600 episodes there. We're currently somewhere between the top 100 and 200 nutrition podcasts in the country, which has been pretty cool. Things to expect. I kind of just put here the introduction and kind of like rules and expectations. Obviously, this is not correct that I am the all-knowing nutrition wizard guru. It's been an interesting journey, and the saying goes, the further away you are from the shore, the deeper the water gets. The more you think you've learned something and know something about it, the more you realize you really don't know anything about it. And that's certainly been true for me. The goal is to keep the goal, which is basically just always remembering, like, what are you training for? What are your personal goals? Don't try to do something that somebody else says if you don't have the same goal, essentially. You are in charge of your health. Do not outsource it to anybody else. As we have seen, this is what happens when we follow standard advice. It really does not go well. And last thing is understand the principles, make it fit into your life, meaning just be pragmatic about this stuff. Nobody's going to be perfect with any of this. The last one, just make this fun. Whether you're able to attend more of these or not, whatever, really grateful that you're here today. All of these obviously will be recorded to YouTube. If nothing else, just hope you get some really good information. Have fun with it. It's a journey, it's a process. A note on the meal plans. The meal plans that I'll be giving out during this kind of course are all free. They are meal plans that I found while we were doing weight loss contests at Lifetime. Does anybody remember the 60-day challenge? Oh my goodness. So it was 2014. Lifetime introduced the 90-day challenge. And they discounted their products and offered a bunch of special events. As trainers, we are 100% commissioned. We got paid nothing for any of it. We were just expected to sell people on the program, to host these events. Again, we were not compensated for. And we found that so many people would start the program, and the compliance of the program would be about 15% of people that would start, get on the scale, be super motivated. The number of people that, whether they reach their goals or not, was about 15% of people would stand on the scale afterwards. So the 90-day was a smash success for the company. They made tons of money. So they switched it and did the 60-day challenge, which then they could do 4 times a year, make even more money rather than the 90-day twice a year. And so for us as trainers, it was a revolving door of selling a program. One would end, you'd have a month to try to load up on new people to do this program. You would give people packets of information. The thing was like 120 pages and came with shopping lists. And like, I'll never forget, one night I get a call from a woman crying in the grocery store because she can't find arrowroot powder. It's looking everywhere for arrowroot powder because it's on this list with like rutabagas and like rhubarb and like all this stuff that nobody cooks with or knows like what to do with. And it was frustrating. We hated it because we knew people weren't going to stick with it. They weren't going to do it. It was a failure. And anybody who signed up for it first time would be way less likely to do it again. So you'd have to go find new people and get them on board. It just sucked. And so when I found these meal plans, we started doing our little groups in a kind of a rogue and different way, and the company never knew about it. And we would give them these meal plans that were much more simple. We told them, the people that would sign up for us, to just go look at some of these recipes, see which ones look good, and eat them with your family, whatever they like as well, but make sure that you eat them until you are completely full. Don't try to calorie count. Don't track anything. Just eat delicious looking food, whatever you think looks good there. And we tracked it during that contest. So you'll see on the picture, when we started giving these meal plans out, we ended up getting 126 people out of 187 people to actually weigh out. So our compliance percentage of people that stuck with it was much higher. So that percentage was 67.4. So north of 2/3 of people actually did it and actually weighed out. The total weight loss of those 126 people was 735 pounds, and 720.9 of those pounds was actually validated on a body fat scale for coming from fat in particular. So that, according to any of my personal training or nutrition coaching books, is not possible. When you lose weight, you should be losing weight from everywhere, including fat, but also muscle, lean body mass. We showed nearly 100% of weight loss coming from fat. So that was really impressive. I was definitely very surprised by that. I thought these would go really well. But I didn't think the numbers would be that good. And keep in mind, this is not a scientific study, but this was a large group of people. This was people with all kinds of different goals. Not everybody wanted to lose weight. It was men and women and people that lifted weights. Or maybe people did yoga, or maybe people didn't work out at all. But just like giving out these meal plans and telling people to just live in that area was super, super helpful. Do want to say as well, on the meal plans, you are going to see that some of them are going to say things like keto or low carb or whatever. Ignore that. Just ignore it. All of these all of these recipes can have carbohydrates added into them. You could add rice, you can add beans, you can add whatever. It is not important to think you're doing the keto diet. That is not the point. It's just that I have learned that doing some form of a carbohydrate restriction for a lot of people tends to work. So you're going to see that title. Please just try to forget about it and just remember the results on that graph and say, I don't care what the diet was. If it got that result, then I'm going to just try it. And again, you can be as strict or as liberal as you want with recipes. Make it friendly for your family, adding carbohydrates as you need. Those meal plans also found on the website, so you can download them. I've got one printed copy if somebody wants them, but they'll just be found there. And like I said, I didn't have great luck like going through and, okay, Monday I'm going to have this exact lunch and I'm going to have this exact dinner. It was just actually just looking through the recipes and going like, oh, that's reasonably good. Let me add this and take away this and make it something that I liked. And then again, no restriction. Don't limit anything as far as like how much you're eating. Cool. First episode or first time doing this, I also wanted to highlight a few people and talk about a few stories. These are the stories that you see on the bottom. A lot of them have before and after pictures. I want to say that some of these people I've met, some of these people I have not met, all of these people are people that have found information similar to this. They've been hosted on my podcast, but they did not find any of this out from me. I thought that was important to say that these people learned something very, very similar from somebody else and used it to their advantage. So we're going to start with the fun ones first. These are the kind of like weight loss ones. We'll talk about the more serious ones down the road, but to get started, the first guy you see there, his name is Scott King. Scott King had his first bariatric surgery when he was over 500 pounds in his 30s. Pretty big. He was able to qualify for bariatric surgery. He got it. His weight got down, I want to say, into the 300s when the weight started to come back and gain and gain and gain and gain. He wanted to go back in to get another bariatric surgery, which he was denied for. So now he's in a very tricky spot, back up to 500 pounds, doesn't qualify for the weight loss surgery again, bariatric surgery. He describes a moment where his kid was running out into the road and he could not do anything to stop it. And that really impacted his life. He ended up finding out about some of this information, changed his diet and started losing weight. He is now in the 200s and he's training for an Ironman. He's going to do sometime. He goes through also a list of all kinds of crazy stuff that has gotten better. He no longer has athlete's foot. His digestion is a lot better. He mentions his libido is a lot higher. That's kind of his story. Roxana, this is a person I have met in person. Roxana is great. She also got very, very big following standard advice. She ended up, again, finding some of this information. She has lost several hundred pounds. She's got a little bit to go, but she is now a health practitioner and coaches other people on this kind of stuff. She deals a lot with sugar addiction, which is something we'll talk about quite a bit. So that's Roxana. She's pretty cool. Les Lyons. Another guy that I have met in person. I will link this on the page. Here is a paper copy of Les, if you want to see him. Les, at 7 years old, found himself very unhealthy. He had been in the military for a lot of his life and then worked his way up the corporate ladder. He has a giant laundry list of things that he has dealt with, which he was kind enough before our interview to put into a nice little list presentation. I'll link this on the website. He ended up getting into some of this stuff, and you can see just what a crazy transformation he went through. I think it's really important to state that this happened at age 70 when he was starting. So it's never too late to get started on some of this stuff. I've hung out with Les a few months ago in Vegas. He is super energetic, very, very kind, really, really great guy. And just to see, like, this is some serious stuff on here. Like, not only the weight loss, which you can see just based on the pictures is a huge change, but no longer pre-diabetic, no snoring. His daughter really appreciated that when they went on a trip together. And she was like, Dad, we slept. And he was like, what do you mean? I slept great. He was like, no, we slept because you snore. You didn't snore. Another really interesting with him is his back pain was crazy back pain, spinalosis. What is it? I don't know. Anyway, all of that has reversed. His issues with arthritis are gone. He looks like he hasn't been overweight a day in his life. So great guy. He's really fun and a really cool example of what is possible. Next, Matt Dobbins, another guy that I have met. You can see he got up to a very high weight. He was up in the 300s as well. He was doing a lot of trucking and moving things in trucks across country, listening to podcasts. Came across some work from the Adam Carolla podcast with a guest that simply talked about just like reducing sugar and grains, essentially. He decided he wanted to try it. He's now lost over 100 pounds. He's competing in jiu-jitsu contests. Also another person who is very kind, very energetic. I met him last year in Austin, and they invited me to go to dinner with them. We all went out to a barbecue joint, and like super nice, very friendly. Those are all kind of weight loss stories. So those are awesome, and we love talking about those. They've also had a lot of other changes. We'll get into a little bit more of the kind of more serious stuff now. Bottom left, you're going to see a woman who has definitely lost weight. Her name is Robin Dobbins. This is the wife of Matt Dobbins. So these guys are married. So Robin Dobbins is diagnosed bipolar. She has spent most of her life, for a good chunk of her life, especially as her kids were growing up, heavily medicated. Most days she describes having terrible energy, just enough to maybe go pick up her kids between, sleeping or trying to take naps. Not a great memory or recollection of a lot of that stuff. Her husband listened to the Adam Carolla podcast and decided to try this thing called No Sugar, No Grains. She resisted pretty hard, didn't really want to be doing any particular diet. Eventually, she caved in and started eating in this way. You can see from the picture that her weight changed. And I can tell you she is extremely lean and very fit at her age now. She's doing a lot of Olympic lifting. Her bipolar, however you want to call it, is in remission. She does not have bipolar. I've hung out with her, spent time with her. She is totally normal. She acts totally normal. She sometimes, like at this convention we were just at in Vegas, sometimes like the lights and the sounds of the casino can be a little bit much. But other than that, she's a totally normal human being. She is a person that fits into a subcategory of people called lean mass hyper responders. When she eats in a certain way that her bipolar drops off, her cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, goes through the roof. Not high, not like kind of sort of high, or not like above the limit. We're talking like triple, quadruple, way higher than it should be. Yet every other blood marker looks really good. So she can lower that back down by eating some carbohydrates. If she mixes carbs back in her diet, her cholesterol normalizes like that. But then her bipolar comes back. How would you like to make that decision of having crazy high LDL cholesterol and no bipolar, or having bipolar and your cholesterol goes back to normal? It's uncomfortable.
Would depend on what my calcium artery score would be.
Yeah, that would be a good way to check and see is actual like plaque building up. It is uncomfortable. We don't know the answer to that question. It could very well be that if she eats that way, her heart could blow up. We don't know. We have no idea. But when I asked Matt about it on our episode, I said, yo, Matt, like, it's one thing if you want to eat in a certain way and you've lost the weight and you're a lot healthier. What about your wife? Like, now this is like different territory where the person you like the most, you love the most, is now having this condition. How do you think about that? And he told me on air, I would not trade one single day of going back to the way things were versus having my wife be here and present and enjoying life and experiencing that. I thought that was incredible. Very, very cool stuff. Next on the picture is Hal Cramner. Hal Cramner eventually found some information that helped him with his health. I've met him in person as well. Very healthy dude, really nice guy. His story is quite interesting because he has invested in assisted living properties in Arizona. So he was doing rental properties kind of as a business, as a home in Minnesota, mostly with students, and realizing that students were wrecking his houses and partying and all this stuff, which was a big mess. And he heard that assisted living is actually like way nicer. You don't destroy things at the very least. So he invested in a series of properties in Arizona. These places look like normal homes, like you would drive by and maybe just see like a small sign, but otherwise they're in neighborhoods and whatever. And he gets down there, and again, this is a business thing for him. He sees that like the way assisted homes are is exactly the way you imagine. Somebody gets old or decrepit, and they put them in a home, and they just kind of slowly decline until they die. And everybody says, they're too old, can't really change. Just let them watch TV and eat ice cream, and that's totally fine. So Hal decided, like, wait a second, we could be doing like a little better, I think. So he tried doing different diets, including putting the residents on a vegan diet for a while. He said he had just an absolute like uprising in people that didn't want to do that anymore, miss their meat, which I thought was funny. But eventually found this kind of information and made him healthy. So he started to change the what was available in his homes, and just had more of certain foods and less of the crap that we all know is probably not great for us. Less sugar, less grains, less of the seed oils we talked about before. People in his homes, you have got to see this. They are healthy and happy, and they get out of there. He had a woman come in to his home who was at 650 pounds, needed to be lifted by a crane. So she helped him get more money from the government by taking her on. They contributed more. They started getting her on a workout program and started working on her diet. She had lost previously in her life, I want to say about 100 pounds. So I think by the time she entered Hal's facility, she was 550. When I talked to her in an interview, she was down in the 300s. She was losing basically like a pound a day, and she has left. She is no longer in there. She's been in assisted living since her young 40s. She's now in her early 40s and is back out. Amazing, cool stories, which leads us to the last one. This woman, Melissa Lujan, another resident of the assisted living facility. She entered Hal's facility at 70 years old with really bad degeneration of her brain. So she, there's a test that you can take. It's called the SLUMS test, the St. Louis something test that tests your level of dementia, Alzheimer's, that kind of thing. She tested a 15 out of 30, which would have qualified her for a diagnosis of dementia. So she enters the home with, she didn't even cancel her rent at her house. She entered the home with the idea that she would do whatever it takes. Diet was part of it. There were other things that she did with her other treatments, including light therapy and hot and cold exposure. She ended up losing 30 pounds. Her tremors went away. She had terrible tremors in her hands. She couldn't handwrite anymore. When we had the conversation, we had it with Hal and with somebody else that she worked with named Eric Collette. Their company is called The Mind for All Seasons. They do all these other treatments to help people recover their mental health. And they said in this interview, like, we're stunned to see you right now talking, holding a conversation, because when you came in here, you couldn't hold a conversation. You'd forget words, you'd forget topics. Like, it was circular conversations. It was really frustrating. We couldn't get through to you. Your family hated it. She's completely out. She is back at her home in Washington, and now she is volunteering at a hospital, and she is training to become a health coach at age 70. Like I said, we've done 600 and something episodes of our podcast, all recorded stories that are similar to that. So I wanted to kind of contrast what we talked about before with some of those stories, and just to say, like, it is possible to have some pretty epic transformations. We talk a lot about like weight loss, and that's really good and exciting, but we need to like realize like what else is, possible when we start to change the way we eat and start to approach things a little bit differently. Any questions, you guys? I think we all know, again, I just kind of put some like basic statistics in the next part on the back of where we're heading. as a current state, like where things are going. Obviously, we're not going the right direction. Obesity rates are going through the roof. Diabetes rates are also through the roof. We used to call type 2 diabetes adult onset diabetes because you wouldn't get it as a child. And we can't do that anymore because children get type 2 diabetes. Also get a lot more type 1 diabetes, which can cross over and give you both, which is pretty scary. I mean, name it, arthritis, diabetes, which we mentioned, heart disease, we talked about, that still kills more people than anything. Way more kidney disease. You can just kind of walk around and look around and see that as a society, we're not doing that great. It's pretty bad out there. We mentioned that 7% number. And then also just take something that one of my guests said, just like to observe, like when you drive around a city, this is Nina Teichel said this, if you're familiar with her work, but like if you drive around a city, what is the nicest, newest, fanciest building that you see? And it's always an addition of a hospital or a dialysis center or its medical system. And this crazy entanglement that we have with like the medical industry and the insurance industry and the food companies, they all, like if people did what some of these other people on the front did that we talked about, these are multi-trillion-dollar industries that would fail. Like they would go away. And so we need to just understand that these things are businesses. People don't necessarily have our long-term health in mind when they're creating some of the products we eat. It's tough. And so hopefully, again, we can get better information out there. We already kind of went through the results of the quiz. Again, the point of that was hopefully to be a little bit eye-opening, to maybe have some surprises in there, just to kind of show again where we are. As for homework, all I did was put in there, see if you want to try some of the meal plans. That's all I would do to get started. Try some meals. If you like them, great. Again, I don't like to look at it as this exact plan. You don't even need to worry about what's in it or protein amounts or fat amounts or any of that stuff. Just see if you have felt deprived, if you felt like you have been, hungry a lot, you have cravings, you need to snack, all that stuff. Try eating some of those meals that are suggested and eat them until you have achieved really like full satiety. Like people tell me all the time, like, wow, for the very first time, I know what it feels like to not be starving all the time. That's kind of like the wrap on this one. Each week, we're going to be just going a little bit deeper into some of this stuff. So next week, we're going to be talking about calories in particular. Haven't come up with exact title yet. I'm thinking the Calorie Conundrum, which is basically what happens when you eat more and move less. Things that I kind of noticed when we follow the standard advice that you'll see on every Coca-Cola vending machine. Balance what you eat, drink, and do. Interesting that they would care about our workouts. After that, we'll be discussing macronutrients, the purpose of carbohydrates, of fats, of proteins. A lot of it's kind of a hot topic now where people are like tracking their macros and that kind of thing. We'll be talking about food preparation. We'll be talking about the guidelines, how we came up with them. We'll be talking about intermittent fasting. We'll be talking about more chronic disease and things that we notice. But that's kind of the start of showing where we are. Not great. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints?
The non-scale victories are better than the weight, although it's seeing my physical transformation, like it's motivating. But like I said, when I wake up and it's like I don't need to sleep in, I'm up before 7 a.m. naturally.
Yeah. And
not having to take a nap every day or multiple naps every day.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. It's a really good point. And I remember one episode I did with the woman, and she was going over all the benefits that she noticed. And I don't crave sugar. I'm not snacking anymore. I'm spending less money on food. Like, this is awesome. And she gets off the phone we get off the interview and we're off record. And she's like, it's like 5 minutes later, she's like, oh my goodness, I can't. And I forgot to tell you, I lost 35 pounds. Like it's like an afterthought based on like all the other things that she noticed. It's weird. Humans, we're like the only ones that are like a species that we have to ask ourselves, what should we eat? Like lions don't wonder what they eat. Turtles don't have to like make dietary decisions every single day, and we're unique. We can eat lots of different food. We are omnivores, but there's a way that every species eats where everything just seems to kind of work for that species, and like they don't get sick and they don't have diseases and they can't eat everything. They only eat specific things. And so yeah, it is cool, the concept of like, I wonder if globally, systemically, if we have the right fuel going in, I wonder if everything can optimize rather than changing the diet to for the heart disease, for the middle-aged dudes. Let's change the diet of every man, woman, and child for decades and see how that goes. Maybe there's a way of eating that fixes everything, and it doesn't have to be like overly strict, and we have tolerances for all kinds of different food. It makes humans really unique, especially like cooking a food. No other animal can do that. But yeah, the non-scale victories in the beginning are really, really important. I'm really glad you brought that up. If you are trying some of the meal plans and they feel uncomfortable, or you notice like cramping or headaches or your stomach hurts or whatever, short term, you might notice things going on. But on every one of these papers, you have my email, you have our website. On the website, you'll find my phone number. All of that is there. Just reach out. If you, again, are feeling uncomfortable, there might be some simple hacks that we can do. One thing I always kind of carry around with me that I really like is like some form of like electrolyte drops, just like salty kind of stuff to put in my water. That can help if you do want to try some of the meal plans. But yeah, I agree. It's the one diet I found where like the weight loss is like, oh, and